Hello everybody and welcome to another Destiny build video. Today is a pretty good build and it's going to be a Prismatic Hunter build using the Praxic Blade. Now this one is all about survivability by getting ourselves some Devour and other benefits such as Woven Mail, and also going ahead and giving our enemies reduced outgoing damage, another way that we'll be able to stay alive for a little bit longer. So like I said, this build is more steeped into survivability rather than outgoing damage, and it works really good. As you can see, it allows you to survive like crazy, taking out waves and waves of ads with pretty much no issues. We'll get Devour, we'll be weakening enemies, we'll even be applying Sever to them, getting Woven Mail, everything of the sort. We have a lot of grenades, we got Radiant, there's so many benefits that we're going to get, so this is a really good build. So without further ado, without taking any more of your time, let's get into it so that way you can put it together and use it in any activity that you would like. So starting off with our exotic of choice, we're going to go with the Omnioculus. This is going to give us 50% damage resistance when we're invisible, and we're pretty much going to be invisible all the time. It's also going to go ahead and give us a second smoke bomb, so that way we'll have another one that we can throw to weaken some enemies. And that's pretty much the main part. Now, there is a little thing like when we make an ally invisible, they gain damage resistance, but we're not really focusing on making other people invisible, as this build is pretty good for solo end content and more so keeping yourself alive. Now for the stats, you're going to want just really good, well-rounded stats. As you can see, I have about a 40 in melee, a 50 in grenade, a 30 in super, a 50 here in the class, and a 140 in my weapons. You're going to want as high as a weapons as possible. Now, you don't have to be around a 200. You don't need to do that. But you're going to want to have it around a 100 up, because that way we get our max 15% bonus damage against minor and major combatants. And then we get some more increased damage in PvE for primary and special weapons specifically, but also heavy weapons, as we go up past 100. Now, that's going to be obviously the best thing, so that way we can increase the damage that our Praxic Blade will do, meaning we'll get more kills faster than before. So you're going to want this to be your highest stat, and after that, everything else should pretty much just be around the middle of the pack. The most important stats are going to be your class and your grenade. Your melees aren't that important, only because obviously we have the Praxic Blade. It's harder to throw them when you have it out. And super, we don't really need to focus on our super, so we don't really need that. So I would recommend having your weapons be your highest, your class would be your second highest, and then your grenade your third highest. For your armor set bonuses, I don't have any on right now, but anything that really affects things like swords or anything that helps give you damage resistance or health or anything of that sort is going to be the ones you want to go with. Those are going to be the top type of armor sets that you want to focus on. So things like Ferropotent, Swordmaster, anything of that sort, that's what you're going to want. Now for our main weapon of choice, we're going to go with the Praxic Blade. With the Praxic Blade, we're going to want Balanced Form, any focus mod of your choosing, Impact Core, and Hyperblade. As Hyperblade is also going to allow us to get amplified with this build, which is obviously enemies are less accurate to us and we get 15% damage resistance. Now your Praxic Blade is an anti-barrier, but you're going to want your other two weapons to be something that can stun the other champions, such as Overload and Unstoppable. So as you can see, I have on my crossbow here, which is a unstoppable bow, so that way I can go ahead and stun those, and then my Praxic Blade takes care of our anti-barrier. I didn't need any overload for the activity I was doing, so that's why I didn't put anything on for that. So that's going to be why you want to have on those type of weapons in your energy and your power slot. Now, of course, you could always put one in your energy slot for the other type of champion in the activity that you're going into, and then go ahead and put in your heavy slot something that is good for boss DPS. That is also a very good option. Now moving on over here to our subclass of choice is going to be Prismatic, aka Prismatic Hunter. So starting here with the super, we're going to go with Silk Strike. This is the strand one, and this is what's going to allow us to get Woven Mail. Now, you can swap this out if you want for Shadow Shot, which will instead give you Overshield. That is entirely fine. The only thing you don't want to do is honestly go with either Solar, Stasis, or Arc. We want to focus on staying on Void or Strand. So I recommend using Silk Strike specifically for this build, but if you really want and you like the feel of it better for the overall build with Shadow Shot, that is fine. Otherwise, stick with Silk Strike. Moving on over here to our class ability, we're going to go with Acrobat's Dodge. The best dodge you can use with the Praxic Blade, because using it will give you Radiant for a good chunk of time, allowing you to do bonus damage with all weapons, and also making any weapons that don't have an intrinsic champion mod an anti-barrier. For your jump, go ahead and use whatever you're most comfortable with. For your melee, you're going to want to put on the Snare Bomb. This is going to give you, obviously, a weakening bomb, which is very nice. And of course, our Omnioculus exotic chest piece is going to give us a second one. Now, this is a very good thing. So say there's an enemy kind of far away, you're running up to him. You can go ahead and drop your sword down for a second, or I should say your Praxic Blade for a second, and then throw the smoke bomb across on him. That will also disorient them, which will help them not attack you, and of course, weaken them for you. That way you can do even more bonus damage to them. So that's going to be a really good thing, and obviously because Omnioculus pairs so well with it, that's why we're going to want to use Snare Bomb over any other choice. The same idea is kind of going to go over here with our grenade. So for our grenade, you're going to want to use Magnetic Grenade. This is the one that will attach to targets and explode twice. Now we're going to pair this with our facet down here, the Facet of Dominance, which is going to allow us to allow it to weaken. So that's going to be another way that we can apply weaken, and it's going to help us out overall with this build. And we're going to want to make sure we throw as many Magnetic Grenades as we get. You get it, find an enemy, throw it at it. That's going to be the main thing with Magnetic Grenades. So moving on over here to the aspects, we're going to start with Stylish Executioner. This is the one that makes it that when we hit and kill an enemy that is affected by an elemental debuff, we will gain invisibility and true sight. Now, invisibility, of course, is a void buff, and that is important for other things later when we get to the artifact. But this is also very good because obviously our Praxic Blade is going to apply Sever if you have Silk Strike on, or Weaken with Shadow Shot, and of course we'll be applying our Weaken from our Snare Bombs and our Magnetic Grenades already. Plus, technically, we will Scorch enemies if we land on them with Acrobat's Dodge. So all of those will count and allow us to go invisible when we defeat those targets. And like I said, it will make us invisible, which is going to be very lovely. And then our last aspect here, or I should just say our second one, is going to be the Threaded Spector. This is the one that allows us to place decoys around so that way enemies attack the decoys and not us. Not to mention, if it is approached or significantly damaged, it will explode, dealing damage and releasing threadlings that seek out and attack nearby targets. So this is a very good one, obviously, for this build, because not only are we getting invisibility, but we're also going to place decoys when we use our Acrobat's Dodge. So basically our dodge is going to place a decoy, making enemies not even look at us, while we get bonus damage thanks to Radiant, and we can go crazy with it. Now moving on down here to the fragments, we're going to start with the most important one, pretty much one of the two most important ones, Facet of Protection. This is going to make it that when we get surrounded by combatants, we gain damage resistance. Obviously one of the greatest ones in the entire game. And we're going to pair that with the other greatest one in the entire game, Facet of Purpose. Now this is going to make it that when we pick up an Orb of Power, it will give us Bolt Charge, Restoration, Frost Armor, Woven Mail, or Overshield, depending on the type of super we have on. So since we have Silk Strike on, we're going to get Woven Mail. Now like I said, if you want and you want to swap it to Shadow Shot, this will now give you Overshield, which is entirely fine. That's why we want to stick with these two for this build, because those are the two buffs that are going to work the best with this build and with the combos that we have on. So if you want Overshield, Shadow Shot is what you're going to want to have on. If you like Woven Mail, then Silk Strike is what you're going to want. And then moving on over to Facet of Hope, which is going to be our third one. This is going to make it that when we have 1 to 2 elemental buffs, we gain our class ability energy back pretty quickly. This is obviously great so that we can get back our Acrobat's Dodge so that we can get Radiant back as fast as possible. After that, we're going to go to Facet of Dominance. I mentioned it briefly earlier, but this is obviously a really good one. It's going to make our Void Grenades weaken targets. So now our Magnetic Grenade will weaken targets just like Snare Bomb, and we don't have to drop our Praxic Blade to throw it. So this is a very good one, and that's why we're going to want to throw it at an enemy, and obviously it will weaken them. Either the grenade kills it itself, or we kill it with our Praxic Blade or anything else, and then obviously we get an elemental defeated kill, makes us invisible, and we continue cycles. And last but not least, this one is interchangeable, I will say that right now, but I have on Facet of Mending. So that way when we throw our Magnetic Grenade, say at like a Scion, a Goblin, whatever we throw it at, it's going to kill it and we'll get Cure, instantly healing us, which is going to be amazing. Now, of course, this one is a little bit interchangeable. If you'd rather swap it to something like Facet of Grace, maybe, Facet of Balance, possibly, even maybe Facet of Awakening, whatever you want to switch it to, you honestly can. But I think Facet of Mending is a pretty nice one. So if you don't want to switch anything, I'd just say leave this one because it's honestly a pretty nice one. Now moving on over here to the armor mods. So starting with our helmet, we're going to run a Kinetic Siphon. This is obviously going to make it so that way we can get some Orbs of Power on rapid Praxic Blade kills. And then we're going to run 2 special ammo finders just to help out our special ammo meter to make sure we don't run out of Praxic Blade ammo. Moving on down here to the golems, we're going to run a Bolstering Detonation. This is going to make it that we gain class ability energy when we cause damage with our grenade. So throw those magnetic grenades. I'm literally gonna sound like Shax for a little bit. Throw more grenades. And then we're gonna put on 2 grenade fonts after that. So that ways, when we have an armor charge, which trust me is pretty much gonna be 100% of the time, we will get a plus 40 to our grenade stat. As you can see, I'm at a 50, which isn't exactly the greatest, but now I will be at a 90 out of 100, or technically out of a 200, but you get what I'm trying to say. A 90 out of 100 for my grenade stat when I have an armor charge. So it's going to be very, very nice. And of course, if you can get your grenade stat to a 60 without your fonts on, then that'll make it a 100. Moving on down here to our Omnioculus, go ahead and use whatever resistance mods works best for the activity that you're doing. Obviously, if you're doing an activity that has a ton of solar incoming damage, go ahead and throw on some solar resistance mods. Maybe it's Void, then you're going to want to throw on some Void ones like so. Or maybe it's Arc and Void, so throw on maybe 1 or 2 Arcs and a Void. You kind of get the idea, so that's what you're going to want to do with your chest piece mods. Moving on down here to the boots, we're going to go with a Better Already. Now, if you watched one of my previous videos, you would know that Better Already is amazing if you put on that Void Super for Overshield. But Better Already is already going to be a good choice too, even if we have Silk Strike on, because that way, when we pick up an orb, we will get, even if an enemy is shooting at us, it's still probably going to take them a second or 2 to hit us. That's already going to give us back a good chunk of our health bar before they hit us and cancel our health regen. So this is still going to be a great one, no matter which super you have on. And then we're going to pair it with a kinetic weapon surge and a weapons font. Obviously, weapons font, since we only have 1, is going to increase our weapon stat by a plus 20 when we have our armor charge. And that's obviously going to be great because that's going to increase our primary and special damage against bosses. But we're also going to pair it with a kinetic weapon surge, which will give our Praxic Blade a just basic 10% bonus damage to all hits against anything. So kinetic weapon surge is going to be a very phenomenal choice, and pairing the two together is really going to help, especially on enemies that are considered bosses. And last but not least, moving down here to the class item, aka our cloak, we're going to start with a Reaper mod. So that was every time we use our Acrobat's Dodge, our next Praxic Blade Final Blow is a confirmed spawn for an Orb of Power. A really amazing one to go with. And then after that, same idea with the grenade fonts. We're going to go with class fonts. 2 class fonts here. This is going to increase our class stat by 40. And as you can see, just like the grenade stat, I have a 50 class. So that means I'm going to go up to a 90 class now. And like I said, if you have obviously your class stat at a 60, then that would make it a 100. So if you can get your class and your grenade to a 60, that's really the best thing you can do, and then have your fonts up, or obviously if you just want to put them up, that's up to you. But this would be the base mods that I would recommend to get the overall best of this build. And last but not least is going to be our Renegades artifact, the encrypted data disk. So we're going to start right here with our Elemental Siphon mod. This is going to be a very good one for this build. Rapid Final Blows with the Praxic Blade will create a super elemental pickup. In other words, if you're using Silk Strike, it will create Tangles, and if you're using Shadow Shot, it will create Void Breaches. Then we're going to put on Power from Pain so that Rapid Final Blows against weakened combatants will give us Devour. That's how we're going to get Devour on this build, making our survivability even better. Then we're going to put on Kinetic Synthesis. This is obviously a very obvious one. You literally need Kinetic Synthesis for this build. And this is going to make it that sustained kinetic weapon damage will create those little white bricks, aka what we used to call primary ammo bricks back in like D1 and early D2. And that's going to be what gives you literally just ammo to special ammo weapons if they're a kinetic damage type, which of course the Praxic Blade is. It will also grant special and heavy ammo progress as well. Then we're going to run Armor Smith so that when we break a combatant's shield, we temporarily gain damage resistance and technically increase melee damage, but we're more interested in that damage resistance. Then we're going to run Combination Argent Blade so that when we briefly pause after executing a light attack, we can follow it up with a light or heavy attack to empower our sword for a short time, aka our Praxic Blade, granting it bonus damage and charge rate. A very lovely one with that. Then we're going to run Singularity Blade. That way when we have a Void Elemental buff, melee and sword hits will weaken targets. Now we're going to have a Void Elemental buff because of invisibility. So that is going to be why we want to use invisibility, and we will get that all the time on kills from our Praxic Blade, yet again because we'll be killing them that are severed or weakened depending on our super. And then we're going to run Sword Storm combo, obviously another amazing one. Performing 3 Praxic Blade light attacks followed by a heavy will summon those Penumbral Blades. and those surround you, getting kills, but they also disorient combatants so that they can't even attack you back. And last but not least, for the main ones, is going to be Void Infestation. Defeating a weakened target will spawn a tracking projectile that weakens other targets. That's going to be one way that we're going to keep the chain of weakened targets going so that we can proc our power from pain so that we get Devour. Now, you will have one extra slot, so all I'm going to say is if you're running Shadow Shot, you're going to want to put on Gravitate Voltaic Charge. But if you're running Silk Strike, you're going to want to put on Expert Handling, just to get a little more guard resistance, nothing too crazy. The reason why I have it this way is because obviously Gravitate Voltaic Charge only works if you have an Arc or specifically a Void super equip. And if you're using Silk Strike, there's no point in having this on because it won't work. So you're going to want to just put on Expert Handling for the swords gain guard resistance. It's the best choice pretty much of the three here, or four I should say. Now, if you do have Silk Strike on and you have maybe a Arc or a Void weapon on your energy slot or maybe your heavy slot, then Impact Shock Gravity is also a fairly good choice. So if you're using Silk Strike and depending on what weapons are in your energy and heavy slot, Impact Shock Gravity or Expert Handling is going to be your best choice. If you're running Void, you're just going to want to use Gravitate Voltaic Charge. So yet again, with our artifact here, you're just going to want Expert Handling, Elemental Siphon, Power from Pain, Kinetic Synthesis, Armor Smith, Combination Argent Blade, Singularity Blade, Void Infestation, and Sword Storm combo. So with all that being said though, that's the end of the video. Let me know what you think about the build in the comments below. And while you're down there, if you like the video, then why not hit the like button, subscribe, comment, share, all of that good jazz, because it lets me know that you like the build videos. So with all that being said though, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, I will see you around the tower.